Evening. Today is 7:31, Wednesday, February 5th. Welcome to the board meeting. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You good? Hi, good evening, everybody. Mayor Garrity is not with us tonight, so we do have a quorum, however.
Trustee Fritchie?
Present.
Trustee Lopez?
Present.
Trustee Casada?
Present.
Deputy Mayor Levin?
Present. Do we have mayor and trustee announcement? Does anybody have announcements? Oh,
I do.
your head shaking there.
Yes. You got me, Tom? All right. Good evening, everyone. Really excited to be with you here tonight. I have one big announcement, and it is on February 12th, we're going to have a hiring event at the community center for the census. This is an incredibly important opportunity to connect your skills and your desire to serve your community with a good paying job that is going to be coming here. It is temporary, and they are in 2-month blocks, and so you can renew every 2 months. And the great part about the census work is that you get the opportunity to get training and move our community to be fully counted. Being fully counted is an incredibly important part of making sure that Ossineke get what it deserves, because everything from taxes to how much our congressional district is counted all comes down to our population. And so that's February 12th from 1 to 6 at the community center. There will be a hiring event. Thank you very much.
Anybody else this way? No? Okay. So, couple, not as big. That was big. But this is actually the time for internships. Different departments, both in this municipality and the town and areas around us, do have internships. I'm not sure exactly where everything's posted, but you should really contact the village manager's office or the various departments. There's some really fun internships. EAC, I may get this right, I may get this wrong, Stuart Kahan will help me, but the EAC will be putting out shortly a position for an intern for 2 to 3 months to help that committee, which advises the Board of Trustees on environmental issues and a whole bunch of other things. So I just want to have people look for that announcement. It will be done through the web blast coming out of the manager's office. And is there any other place right now that you're thinking of posting it so people could be able to look up?
Posted at the high school.
Okay. Okay. And I think I suggested an email just a few minutes ago that maybe some of the SUNYs and some of the local schools as well at the college level for those interested in environmental. It doesn't, you don't have to be interested in environmental, but it would just seem to be a very nice fit. And that too does have a stipend that comes with it. So again, in lieu of that, I don't think you mentioned that the jobs offer like $21 to $23 an hour, which is, you know, pretty good. So I look forward to hearing about all the internships that are available. I was asked by the Moose and the Elks. They too have scholarships for colleges that are going to go into play over the next month or two through the high school mostly. So if parents are listening to this, I feel teenagers are probably studying right now. But if parents are listening, there are some scholarships out there, and they'll become more apparent as we go into February and March. So just be on the lookout for that. We're done with the announcements. Administrative reports, sorry. Administrative reports, Village Manager, Karen Dutori.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. So we have a lot going on. So first off, I want to announce that we are about to embark on our comprehensive plan update for the Village of Ossineke. And the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee interviewed consultants on January 28th. A decision by the committee was made to recommend BFG planning Frank Fish, the principal of BFJ, will be attending the work session next week on February 12th to discuss the proposal more fully and answer any questions the board may have. So we're excited about that, and we look forward to having Frank here next week to talk about the comprehensive plan and what that means for our community. So also Sing Sing Prison Museum, we met with Corporation Counsel Kahan, myself, Tom Warren, our treasurer, and Dale Ferrara and Paul Frioli met with Brent Glass, and we also met with Jerry Fiala to discuss the roles and responsibilities of the village and the prison museum entity to discuss the opening of the op center. So we will be getting started on bidding for construction and renovation work. I'm sorry, the op center at the preview center, the visitor center. So we're getting started on that. We anticipate that we'll have a signed lease and management agreement by the end of February. And additionally, Maddie Zahach and myself met with Assemblywoman Sandy Calif on the 30th to discuss legislation that the Assemblywoman is working on to enable the transfer of ownership of the powerhouse to the village of Ossineke. And this is necessary to facilitate grant financing for the preview center and the museum, ultimately construction and operation of the new visitor center. So we're excited to see that going forward. We also have movement with our 200 Main Street renovation grant. We're going to do some remediation at that building. That's the Historic Bank and Savings Building at the top of Main Street. We have just heard from the State Historic Preservation Office, SHPO, that they have given the green light for the proposed work on this building, and that, again, this work is going to be done with grant money we got through the CFA grant program late last year. We are also getting very excited about upgrading our parking metering system and our parking study. Maddie Zahach has been meeting with the clerk's office and the parking enforcement staff, as well as Lieutenant Damiano from our Ossineke's Finest, to gather some boots on the ground intel about how the system could better serve our residents. As a first step, we are planning to recommend some minor adjustments to the municipal lot administration and to make the permit process easier and more comprehensive. And we will be coming to the board for legislation on that in the very near future. So stay tuned. Also, Chief Sylvester is working with the manager's office to learn more about how other municipalities administer their street and municipal parking lots, and we have enacted a book club to get everybody more familiar with best practices around the country. So our staff is reading 2 books right now. We're starting with books by world-renowned parking expert Donald Shoup, The High Cost of Free Parking and Parking in the City. We look forward to learning more about how we can do better for our residents and businesses and sharing this information back with the Board of Trustees and our community. So interestingly enough, I got a email from a resident the other day actually recommending her daughter's an urban planner in California, and she recommended this book for us too, because I guess word is out, we're all about parking now. So you can all join our book club and we'll put out a list. As a reminder, I want to remind everybody that our rec center is now open on Sundays, and there will be baseball from 9 to 12 and open gym the rest of the afternoon. So if you're inclined, feel free to stop by the rec center this Sunday. As I think you all know, we've been working on streamlining our event policies to facilitate events that benefit our community while ensuring that the village is adequately addressing issues with regard to public safety, insurance liability, as well as appropriate use of municipal funds and services for such events. We have scheduled a stakeholder meeting for Monday, February 24th at 6 p.m. Invitations will be sent to key stakeholders who are involved in events in the village of Ossineke to solicit their input. Subsequent to that, we will be presenting with that input. We will be presenting policies and recommendations to the Board of Trustees at an upcoming work session. with regard to our Department of Public Works, we're working on ops center renovation, predominantly the roof repairs and installing an elevator for greater access to the building. We'll be meeting with the architect next week, and we will then meet with the board to review the scope of work and pursue next steps. An update on our water issues. Currently, the Indian Brook Reservoir is at 50% capacity, and we're taking 60% of the raw water from New York City and 40% from our own Indian Brook Reservoir. We just received New York City raw water MIB results from last week, and if you remember, MIB is what's causing the taste and odor issues. The results are more favorable than they were a few weeks ago. We went from 96.3 points per thousand to 57.2 points per thousand, which means you can still probably taste it, but again, at lower levels than it was previously. And we anticipate that we will have the new plant, their new powder activated carbon system that will hopefully eradicate all of this operational about a month, because we do have the equipment's been delivered and being installed as we speak. And we are I just want to reassure everybody too that we are in constant conversation with the Westchester County Department of Health, and they'll be approving the project. We are also, regulators for their input to streamline the final approval. And again, the goal is to have everything up and running by the end of the month, or within a month rather. Our Broadway Bridge is nearly complete. They've been installing the railings this week, and that should be finished probably tomorrow or the next day. It is really great to have Ossinike's signature double arches fortified and restored to their former glory, and a ribbon cutting has been scheduled for March 5th at 5 p.m. The village will be embarking on our first New York State mini bid for the procurement of 2 full electric vehicles, and this is something that the board has talked about for some time now. And these will be used by our code enforcement staff, and we'll be adding them to the village fleet for that purpose. A board retreat has been scheduled for Friday, February 28th from 8:30 to 3:30. GE in Crotonville has graciously donated their space and services, and we have Jessica Batcher, John Nolan, and Tiffany Zazula of Pace University available to facilitate this training, which is designed to provide an opportunity for the Board of Trustees and management staff to discuss best practices related to governance, interagency, and public communications, as well as foundational and cutting-edge information related to priority land use issues. And finally, finally, we have great news. Paul Fraioli, village engineer, is being honored for the outstanding engineering government by Westchester Putnam chapter of the New York State Society of Professional Engineers. And we're very happy to announce this. We're thrilled for the opportunity for Paul to be recognized for the great work that he does. And the award will be presented at the Engineers Week Awards Dinner on Thursday, February 20th at Westchester Manor in Hastings on the Hudson. And if you would like to come, you can register for this event and celebrate with Paul and our staff at the Westchester Putnam chapter of New York State Society of Professional Engineers website. So that's www.westputpe.org. And that concludes the manager's portion of reports for tonight. Thank you.
Questions?
Aaron, just obviously congratulate Paul on getting this award, but I do have a quick question in regards to 200. More like a clarification, I guess. Work that is going to be performed in this building is everything interior work, correct? Nothing exterior work.
No exterior work. It's really basic remediation that has to do with lead, asbestos, and mold in the building. So
one of the things that I got questioned a couple of weeks back. Historic building, had questioned and didn't answer them, but I want to make sure the public is also aware. This, because it's interior work, we don't need to see that end. Nothing to do with exterior.
No,
this
and,
is,
and right
everything
now it's
interior.
just really taking care of issues that, issues of remediation. So there's no, reason to go in front of the HPC. Going through the State Historic Preservation, organization is something that we needed to do to be able to do the work because it is a historic building. But right now, there are no plans. So for any further development beyond that. So at that point, the point that we do the remediation, the building's in a better position for it to be repurposed, as we had been talking about previously, for different things. And at that point, if there was exterior work, then we would have those discussions. So.
Thank you.
Bob? Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt as you were going through. I never know what's better, to stop you at each one or wait till you're done. So I guess we'll try different ways. So thank you. A lot of stuff going on, right? We meet every week for one reason or another, so that's a lot of stuff. So I got a couple of questions during the week. With next week, there's a presentation at the work session, but if people want to get involved, there's an assumption, and I actually don't know the answer to this, that there'll be some sort of subcommittees assigned or other ways people want to get involved. I have two specific requests to be involved in sort of the next phase. For the comprehensive. Yes, I'm sorry, I was going to be your first one, comprehensive plan. How do they get involved? Do they still go on the website with their hands up and sign up, or is there some other format being used or platform?
So certainly people can reach out, and my contact information's online, and reach out and just sort of flag that they want to get involved. Once we get started on it, we will be implementing a public engagement plan and developing subcommittees to work on key topics. So whether it's parking, transportation, housing, economic development, we'll have subcommittees. So that's one way. And then we're also going to plan a pretty robust engagement period with workshops that the consultant will be facilitating. And we will be creating a website that's dedicated to the comprehensive plan to get information out. So I think that the specific appointments or, opportunities rather to get involved will become apparent as we start implementing that plan. But if somebody has a burning interest and they just want to make sure that we reach out to them, it would be good to, just flag it so we can put them on our list.
I'll give you that when we're done. Thanks. The events and we've discussed this for a couple of years. It's a lot to sort of grab hold on. We have lots of events in Main Street and in different areas. Some have been around for many, I don't want to say decades, but probably a couple have been around for decades. Some are big, some are small. So I just want to maybe, doesn't have to be tonight, but because you mentioned it, sort of an idea of the process of community engagement. Seems to me that there's probably a list somewhere of the usual cast of characters that every year they would like Main Street or a park or whatever. We know who they are, I hope, from previous engagements. And then there are the people that sort of want to get in and would like to use parks or Main Street or Spring Street or whatever. And how do they get involved? So I'm just not sure how we're communicating this, how we're I'm sure you have a plan. I just would like to hear it at some point.
We are, we'll be sending out invitations to, again, the people who are regularly involved in events. And this is all types of events so this is nonprofits, civic groups, all the chamber,
churches,
churches, anybody who's participating more broadly. And then we're really trying to cast a wide net on that. And then we're also going to make sure that we push it out and saying, in our various e-blasts and stuff, saying, updating people that this is when it is, and if they're interested, that they can come to this meeting. So I think at this point, though, it's probably like the purpose of this meeting is really for people who have experience doing this to provide input based on what they see as issues with events and everything else. So, and then as we, then we'll obviously come to a work session, which we'll publicize as well, talking about the plan. And then I would imagine that we could develop other ways to get public engagement around it too.
Okay, that'll be great. I mean, I think, and I know it's a big topic and there's a lot of pieces to that. That's great. Now that the bridge is finished, now that the bridge is finished and we've got the date, before the village did this amazing job of taking what really was supposed to be a path for personnel to walk into that area, which was turned into this beautiful path that has been in a movie and we're all walking on it. Um, I'd hate to see for the garbage to start coming over the fences and start again, and all the litter that ends up coming in there. So if we could take the opportunity not only to enjoy the moment of accomplishment, but send again to the people living in that area and maybe a couple signs about litter and enact actually not only that we don't appreciate the litter, but that there are consequences to throwing tires or bottles or whatever it is, because there are now people actually walking in there,
Right.
which is different than what it used to be. But I think we should just take the opportunity to celebrate, but also remind. And I don't know if that's in the plans. I didn't hear you say it, so I would just like to sort of put that out there, if that's
I think
possible.
it's a good consideration as this area does get more and more public use,
Yep.
and that we make sure that we're reminding people to keep our parks clean, and also doing things that prevent vandalism and things like that too. So
Right.
I think that certainly from the village perspective, there's an understanding of it's a valley, so things even in a storm,
Oh, yeah.
so between our Parks and Recs guys and our sanitation guys, there's an interest in keeping it clean. And I think that we can look for ways to maybe put some signage up to
Right.
reinforce that message.
That'll be appreciated. Thanks for the 2 electric vehicles. As you know, I own mine because Maddie, when she was with the town, had brought Nissan the Leaf that I have to a one of the fairs, and I got to really look at it. It's great. So thanks for bringing electric cars. Something when I first started as a trustee, we were talking about as we age out some of our vehicles to bring that in. That's it. Thank you.
We noted, but it's
No, it's
a good
great.
opportunity.
I'm happy about it. I think it's great for our environment to have electric. Corporation Council.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Good evening, members of the board. This week, there were 2 of our land use boards monthly meetings. Historic Preservation met on Monday night. It was a spirited meeting because it was essentially a continuation of the information session regarding the Warden's House, which most of you would know as the clubhouse at
Yeah.
Hudson Point. I would say about 30 residents were there, so in the Op Center conference room, it effectively filled the room. Trustee Quezada was there as well to just hear the various folks who were there, and we had a quorum of the HPC that night. So, and I thought, it went very well, and everyone was heard, let me say that. Last night there was a meeting of the Environmental Advisory Commission. There were no matters in terms of consideration of applications, but there was a very good discussion with regard to what kind of actions the EAC can take with regard to working with the other land use boards. A few suggestions were made, things that will be followed up on. As the Deputy Mayor mentioned, one of the members, Kate Schlott, is finishing up the advertisement for the intern, who will primarily be doing some GIS work with regard to the open space inventory that they'll be working on. The hope is for the intern to start in the middle of May and work through August. So that's something there. And of course, anyone who is interested, once it's posted, can get in contact. The EAC will be conducting interviews to get that person on board. Last week, the board may recall, Ms. Cynthia Wood appeared before the board with regard to 20 Maple Place. I just want to give a brief update on that. The individual who was responsible for taking down the garage and the tree was actually at the building department today to get a, if you want to call it, post-dated permit. He is not able to do that primarily because since the bank does not own the building, the only way that we could give a permit to someone who is not the owner is with the owner's permission. And clearly Ms. Wood is not going to give permission for that to happen. We also had some questions for this individual because he, did not provide information as to the condition of the debris that was taken out of the garage. There is always a concern that that could be asbestos-containing materials. So there will be a communication from the building department to the state labor department on that. There'll also be a communication to the county's Department of Consumer Affairs with regard to the particular individual who did this work. With regard to the taking down of the tree, the individual, from what I'm told, advised that it was someone he knows from the state of Connecticut, but we have no name, no license or anything. So I can advise that orders to remedy have been written, have been issued, and we will be following up with that. I can also advise the board that as of tonight, there have been no permits sought by either Ms. Wood on her behalf or Mr. Chernoff, who was before the board with her last week. The contractor who was in the audience last week did meet with Mr. Augustinelli, but as of today's date, there have been no further applications for any work to be done at that property. I have been in communication with the attorney for the bank that is processing the foreclosure, reminded him that while they are permitted under the terms of the mortgage to come onto the property to maintain does not mean demolish or remove trees and things like that. And I've spoken to him. I've also left a message with the, I guess we could call it the servicing company with regard to what's going on, and we're following up. Finally, there is a Zoning Board of Appeals meeting this coming Tuesday night at 7 o'clock at the Ossineke Operations Center. The agenda and all documents affiliated with the items on that are online, and anyone of the public is certainly invited to attend. And if they have any questions, they can get in touch with the planning department, and they'll be able to answer those questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Lester?
Good evening. As you may have seen yesterday, we publicly deployed our 2020 Vision, which is our traffic improvement program. As Karen talked about, we have a number of projects we're working on, not just in the police department, but across the municipality. For our portion of that, we're going to be doing a number of different things, from traffic enforcement to education, both motorists and pedestrians, things dealing with child safety seats. As Karen stated, parking. We've submitted a first draft of an updated taxi ordinance to try and better regulate the taxis in our community, as well as we'll be submitting an updated ordinance to deal with tow trucks here in Ossineke. So all of that coming soon. And there'll be conversations about this throughout the year. Last night we conducted alcoholic beverage compliance checks. Of the 32 establishments we have in Ossineke, 29 of them were open, 8 failed. A list of those can be found on our Facebook page. In all of those cases, appearance tickets were issued to the clerk and to the store, and referrals have been made to the State Liquor Authority. That's all we've got from the police department tonight. Thanks.
I have a question. Chief, thank you for the update. Can you tell us a little bit more details about how those compliance checks work?
Can you be more specific in your
Sure.
question?
So mechanically,
that would probably be inappropriate for a board meeting.
okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Organizational announcements. Is there anybody here to speak for an organization? I see no one, so we're going to move on to resolutions. Madam Clerk?
Village Board resolutions. Visitors, is there anyone here to speak on a Village Board resolution tonight? Seeing no one. Approval of minutes. January 22nd, 2020. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossineke hereby approves the minutes of the January 22nd, pushing myself, 2020 regular meeting as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Madam Clerk? I don't,
Oh, does you have any comments? I just
anybody have, I don't think so. Anybody have
Okay.
any comments?
all in favor?
Aye.
Approval of minutes, special meeting, January 29th, 2020. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the minutes of the January 29th, 2020 special meeting as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments from the board? Madam Clerk?
All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of voucher detailed, February 5th, 2020. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the voucher detail report dated February 5th, 2020 in the amount of $338,353.67. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Board?
Do have a question, and probably for Stuart. It's just to clarify it in my own head, I guess. Part of the voucher details is a payment to the new software that we have purchased,
Yes.
Edmunds. But we have a resolution, resolution G, that talks about that. How does that technical part kind of works? Because when we pass the voucher detail, we're saying that we are allowed to pay for this, but we haven't passed the resolution to make that payment.
Fair question.
It's just, I don't know if it's, I mean,
Well, give him a second.
what I would say, I do understand exactly what you're saying, because I
Okay.
saw that in there.
thank you.
In view of the fact that it's just like 3 resolutions
Yes,
down the road,
yes.
and assuming that the board approves that.
Right.
If not, then we would have to come back and
Okay.
revisit this one. But it would seem, because I note that one does deal with the Edmonds going in and out, but I agree, your point is well taken, Trustee
All right.
Quezada. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All
Madam
those
Clerk?
in favor?
Aye.
Resolution calling for a public hearing regarding the adoption of administrative procedures and technical standards for the village's cross-connection control program. Resolved that the public hearing shall be held in the Village of Ossining Board of Trustees on February 19th, 2020 at 7:30 p.m. at the Birdsall-Fagan Police Court Facility, 8688 Spring Street, Ossining, New York, regarding the adoption of administrative procedures and technical standards for the village's cross-connection control program pursuant with section 259-22A in the Village of Ossining Code. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
So who is the so moved?
You got it?
Yep.
Any comments on the board?
Well-
Stuart, if you can
Oh.
just explain that a little
Of
bit more in
course, I'd be
details,
happy
please.
to. This is pursuant to the village code, specifically the section dealing with cross connection, which we would basically known as backflow devices. The code requires that the administrative procedures and technical standards actually be approved by the board by resolution following a public hearing. We have a very robust backflow control program in the village, and this will basically just, if you want to call it, codify what that is in terms of what buildings are involved, which require it, what kind of inspections are required. It's all in compliance with both the regulations of the Westchester County Department of Health and the New York State Department of Health. And essentially, it is to prevent any water going into the public system that is coming from homes or businesses.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
All those in favor?
Aye.
A resolution authorizing the purchase of various trucks, including apparatus, in and for the Village of Ossining, Westchester County, New York, at a maximum estimated cost of $580,000, and authorizing, subject to permissive referendum, the issuance of $580,000 in serial bonds of the said village to pay for the cost thereof. Be it resolved by an affirmative vote of no less than 2/3 of the total voting strength of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining Westchester County, New York. Section 1. purchase of various trucks, including apparatus, in and for the Village of Ossining, Westchester, New York, and thereby authorizing the subject of the permissive referendum with a maximum estimated cost of $580,000. Do I have a motion?
But we're doing section by section?
No, we're just going to read it and then just say the rest of the sections. Do you want to read all the
Oh, okay.
sections?
Do I want to read them?
Well, I'm just saying.
You don't need
I
to.
mean, you know,
I think I'm
Again-
just curious if we have to or not.
no, no,
That's
no.
all. Okay.
Again, this agenda is always posted on the webpage
Right.
and also on the bulletin board in the front of the clerk's office. It will stay there for the rest of the week
Right.
too. Okay,
So
I
let-
apologize.
Let's
Comments?
vote, take care of section 1 through section.
Yes, it will, sir.
9, whatever, 10.
10.
10.
Section 10.
So moved, Hannah.
Second?
Any comments? Could
Okay,
you?
this is a roll call vote.
Okay, I just have a
Oh,
comment.
so, I'm sorry.
That's okay, Stuart, just so the public understands permissive referendum, what it actually means.
That would mean that within a certain period of time, the public can petition to have a referendum to essentially cancel this board's vote with regard to the expenditure of $580,000 or bonds for $180,000 to purchase the 4 vehicles.
Right,
And permissive meaning that if they want to, they'd have to go through the process of having a referendum.
okay, thank you.
Sure.
So roll-
Trustee Lopez?
Is it aye?
It is aye.
Okay, aye.
Deputy Mayor Levin?
Aye.
Trustee Casada?
Aye.
Trustee Fitchy?
Aye.
Thank you. Finance, establishment of various capital projects from the 2020 debt financing sources. Whereas the village management wishes to establish capital projects for various capital purposes and purchases aggregating $580,000, which were part of the village's 2020 capital plan and designated to be financed by the issuance of serial bonds. Therefore be it resolved that the capital projects and capital project budgets are established for account number. You want me to read it down? And again, all of this information is on the webpage and in the clerk's office. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second?
Second.
Any comments on the board
Yeah,
about
just,
this?
I'm presuming that this is explaining exactly what we just passed.
Yes.
It's a line item, basically.
That's correct.
Moving the money around, yeah. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
May I just ask who did the
I
motion?
second.
You second? Motion? Finance, budget modification, Edmunds Accounting System Implementation Project, Capital Project for 2019. Want that to say 2019? Resolved that the Edmunds Accounting System Implementation 2020 Capital Project is established in the amount of $207,120.38 to be funded by the residual equity transfer of $129,520.38 from the Munis Implementation Capital Project and contribution from the town of Ossining of $77,600. And as follows, to be further resolved that the Munis Implementation Capital Project is declared closed. And again, all of the appropriations are here. And again, it's on the webpage and hanging in the office at the clerk's office. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments from the board?
No.
Something? Oh, I do. Tom, do you want to just take a couple of minutes and explain about the accounting system project? Does this need further explanation, do you think, than the budget for the public? I'm not putting you on the spot. It's going on for 2 or 3 years. And just what this is.
Yes, thank you. This was discussed at the work session last week.
Right.
And this resolution is to establish the Edmunds Accounting System capital project to be financed by the excess or unspent monies from the Munis Accounting System Implementation Project from 2016, as well as a contribution from the town for their share of the project. It poses the Munis project, since all the funds from that project were just about enough to pay for the village's share of this project. And it's just the accounting system and budget entry to establish the project on our accounting records.
Thank you.
Any more comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Authorizing the village manager to issue a request for proposals for the operation of concession at Henry Gordine Park kiosks. Resolved that upon review of the Corporation Council, the village manager is authorized to issue a request for proposals for the operation of the concession at Henry Gordine Park kiosks. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? Wow, like a quiet group. We've been talking about this little kiosk that sits on the waterfront for years and years. Maddie's here we had a conversation though in the work session for those people that are following. I think it's fair to say we're excited that you're on board and addressing this. It's a nice spot on our waterfront. People continuously wonder why there's nothing there, and now there will be something there because you're opening up an RFP, and I'm sure there's some interested parties in looking at it. But if there are others, is there still time if other businesses are interested?
Sure. Yes, thank you. So the plan is to release it on Monday, so February 10th. And so we'll, of course, contact the folks who have already reached out and have been inquiring over the past 2 or 3 years. And as well as, have it in the weekly blast. We'll share it with the town to ask them to do the same, as well as advertise in some local papers and publications. So just try to get the word out to as many folks as we can. And then there's about a month turnaround time before they need to be back.
Great. Thank you. Sure. Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Resolution I, authorization of the village manager to sign an agreement with Aspca Engineering PC. Resolved that upon review of Corporation Council, the village manager is authorized to sign an agreement with Aspca Engineering PC, 360 Underhill Avenue, Yorktown Heights, New York, 10598, to provide services to the village of Ossineke as the village's representative in the water tank mixing and irrigation project for $46,800, as detailed in the proposal dated January 22nd, 2020. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Board? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Fire Department. Senate Hook and Ladder Company Number 1, removal from active roles. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossineke hereby removes Christopher Finelli from the active roles of the Ossineke Fire Department, Senate Hook and Ladder Company Number 1. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments on board? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Fire Department appointment, Independent Hose Company Number 6. Resolved upon recommendation of the Fire Chief, Brian Porcelli, Ossineke, New York, has been elected to an active member of the Independent Hose Company Number 6 for interior firefighting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Anybody on board? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Continuing business of the board. 2020 feral cat discussion. What do you want to do with that?
That's, I think your name is associated with it?
Yes, we have Paula Garber from the Cat Protection Council of Westchester is here. I'm going to hand up the,
Oh, good.
okay.
I have extras if you need them. Okay, good evening, and thank you for giving the Cat Protection Council of Westchester the opportunity to share an update on the Village of Ossineke's Trap Neuter Return Program. Let's start with some facts about the feline reproduction cycle. Female cats are seasonally polyestrous, which means they have multiple estrus cycles throughout the breeding season. As the amount of daylight begins to increase after the winter solstice, which is December 21st, of course, the reproductive cycle of intact females kicks into gear, and most will go into heat by late January, which we're already there. A female cat will keep coming back into heat every 1 to 2 weeks until she gets pregnant or the amount of daylight decreases in October. Feline gestation period is about 63 days, so the first kittens of the season will start arriving in late March. And most cats will have a heat cycle within 6 to 8 weeks after giving birth. And depending on the normal cycle of an individual cat, it is possible for her to have a heat cycle and get pregnant 48 hours after giving birth. Amazing, isn't it? My name is Paula Garber, and I'm a lifelong resident of the town of Ossineke. I hold a diploma in feline behavior science and technology and a Master of Arts degree in education. I'm also a certified animal training and enrichment professional, a certified feline training and behavior specialist, and a founding member of the Cat Protection Council of Westchester, or CPCW, which was formed in 2014 with the assistance of Alley Cat Allies. The Village of Ossineke's Trap Neuter Return Program for community cats started in 2010, and CPCW has been conducting the program since 2018. Just want to review a little bit about what Trap Neuter Return is and what community cats are. So Trap Neuter Return, or TNR, is the only humane and effective method for controlling community cat populations. Community cats are unowned cats who live outdoors wherever people live. The community cat problem is a human-caused issue when people abandon their pet cats when they move or neglect to spay and neuter their cats and allow them outdoors. Community cats are the same species as pet cats, Felis catus. The difference is that they are feral or generally not socialized to people, and they are not adoptable. In TNR, cats are humanely trapped and have a heart type traps, spayed or neutered, vaccinated against rabies, then returned to their outdoor homes. TNR stops the breeding cycle and reduces nuisance behaviors associated with mating, such as fighting, caterwauling, spraying, and roaming. Returning the cats to the locations where they are trapped prevents new cats from moving into that territory, a scientifically proven phenomenon called the vacuum effect. Friendly cats and young kittens are rescued and adopted into homes. Unadoptable feral cats are ear-notched to identify them as being spayed or neutered and vaccinated, and return to the location where they were trapped. Sick cats who are not treatable are euthanized. CPCW practices targeted TNR, which means that all cats at one site are TNR'd before moving on to the next site. Studies have shown this to be the most effective way to stabilize community cat populations. Community cats in the Village of Ossineke are trapped on a weekly basis, unless the Spca is closed for a holiday that falls on Monday, which is Feral Cat Surgery Day. We drop off the Village of Ossineke TNR request forms at the police station on Wednesday. They are processed by the Chief of Police, Animal Control Officer, or a representative, and then we pick up the forms at the police station on Friday each week. CPCW has 3 standing spay-neuter surgery appointments at the SPCA's Simpson Clinic on Mondays, and trapping is done on the weekends to accommodate for volunteers' work schedules and minimize stress to the cats who remain in the traps until they are returned after surgery. TNR volunteers coordinate trapping with the colony caregiver because food must be withheld for 24 hours prior to trapping, and this increases the chances of the cats going into the traps. Once the cats are trapped, they are housed and cared for by TNR volunteers and prepared for surgery on Monday, which means they are fasted on Sunday night. The TNR volunteers then transport the cats to the SPCA's Simpson Clinic in Briarcliff Manor on Monday morning and pick them up the same day in the afternoon after their surgery. The TNR volunteers then house and care for the cats while they recover from surgery, which is usually 24 to 48 hours, and then the volunteers return the cats to the locations where they were trapped. So here are our statistics for the Village of Ossineke. So in total, 56 cats were trapped, neutered, vaccinated, and returned to their colonies. 37 of them were females and 19 were males. CPCW has a partnership with Mercy College's Vet Tech program where we supply cats for their applied clinical veterinary nursing practicum. So 2 of those females and 2 of those male cats were treated free of charge through that program. 3 cats were euthanized, and the SPCA took in 17 kittens and 5 adult cats for adoption, and CPCW volunteers rescued and adopted out 9 cats. And here are the costs. The Simpson Clinic charges $55 for female cats, $40 for male cats, and $35 for euthanasia. Those fees are paid for by the Village of Ossining, and they include the surgery, the rabies vaccine, and an ear notch to identify that they've been trapped and vaccinated and neutered. The CPCW and TNR volunteers pay for other treatments the cats may need, including flea treatments, antibiotic injections, subcutaneous fluids, which is often necessary for pregnant cats when their kittens are aborted, dental work, and treatment for other various injuries. These additional treatments are necessary to ensure that the cats are healthy when they're returned to their outdoor homes, and it is good practice to provide these treatments. We do have receipts for all of these, so if you're interested, we will make them available to you. So these are the totals for those costs for 2019. According to CPCW's records, the TNR costs for the Village of Ossining in 2019 were $2,710, and CPCW and TNR volunteers costs were $4,940. So included in that $4,940 is $935 in Spca Simpson Clinic fees that they paid when the animal control officer was not at work and TNR request forms were not processed. The TNR volunteers continued trapping during that time to prevent kittens from being born, which would have ultimately resulted in higher TNR costs to the village, and to ensure that cats were being vaccinated against rabies. So regarding the TNR request forms not being processed, Chief Sylvester stated in an earlier meeting last year that the problem with processing those forms was that they didn't have the staff to inspect the sites. And I would just like to offer that we can help with that because we're in contact with the caregivers for the cats and we know when the cats come out to eat. So we would be happy to coordinate that when they are unable to process forms. So the remaining amount of $4,005 was spent on additional treatments, which were described in the previous slide. And this includes for the Simpsons Clinic, and we also needed private veterinary care for some of the treatments that the Simpson Clinic does not perform. For instance, one cat had a broken leg. So not included in this figure of the TNR volunteer expenses are their costs for the traps, the trapping equipment, cat food, cat bowls, winter cat shelters, bedding and covers for traps, cleaning supplies, protective gear, gas mileage, and their time. So the Spca Simpson Clinic is going to be closing very soon for renovations. These renovations are expected to take approximately a year and a half. And the last feral cat spay neuter day is Monday, February 10th, which is right around the corner. The Spca will be continuing its clinic at a location in Peekskill, but the opening date for that clinic is currently unknown. And as we discussed earlier, the female cats are getting pregnant now, so we really can't wait for that Peekskill clinic to open. So what Cat Protection Council is doing to help keep the village's TNR program going is our Spca liaison, Leslie Smith, is discussing with the Spca some special arrangements with them to continue providing the CPCW with their TNR services in the interim before the Peekskill clinic opens. We've also reached out to an organization called the Animal Rights Alliance, or TARA. They're a low-cost spay-neuter clinic in Middletown, and they have a transport van that picks up and drops off cats at designated spots in the area. They have agreed to pick up cats for us at a designated spot in Peekskill. They charge $70 per cat, male or female, and that does include spay-neuter surgery, rabies vaccine, and the ear notch. There's also a $25 flat fee for them to transport the cats between their clinic and the pickup drop-off location. And we could schedule regular pickup days with them to treat the Village of Ossining cats, for instance, Mondays. Mondays is usually our surgery day for the cats. They do have a minimum number of cats per pickup, so if the CPCW does not meet the minimum with for the VO, the Village of Ossining cats, we can coordinate with other organizations doing TNR to meet that minimum, just to fill up that van, so they will come down and do the pickup. The way Tara works is they do require prepayment. They actually require payment at the time of when they pick up the cats at that pickup spot. So we would have to work that out, but the TNR approval process would probably work about the same, but we can discuss that, the logistics of how that would work. We did reach out to a local veterinarian just as another backup, just in case something didn't work out. I spoke with Dr. Paul Kleinbard with the Family Veterinary Care of Ossining. His clinic is at 320 North Highland Avenue. His fees are significantly higher at $225 for females and $100 for males. That does include the spay, neuter surgery, rabies vaccine, and ear notch. I don't know if that's really viable, but I just thought I would put it there for comparison purposes and another consideration. So to wrap up here, I'd like to just talk about some of the public activities the CPCW has done over the last 2 years. In addition to conducting the Village's TNR program, we held an educational forum event with Dr. Sabrina Timperman in March of 2018. Dr. Timperman is an assistant professor in the veterinary technology program at Mercy College in Dobbs Ferry. She discussed the myths and misconceptions about trap-neutered return for community cats, and a video of her presentation is available on the Cat Protection Council's YouTube channel. We also rented a booth at the Ossining Street Fair last year and enjoyed sharing information about the Village's TNR program with residents and Assemblywoman Sandy Calif. And in the fall of last year, 4 of our members earned TNR certification through the Aspca in Manhattan. So our goals for this year are to continue conducting the Village's TNR program, of course. We would also like to expand educational events for the community in the schools and through community events like the street fair. We're hoping that the Village could help us cover the cost of our booth at the street fair so we can use our resources to provide educational materials at that event. We would also like to discuss publicizing the TNR program on the Village's website. This will help us more easily provide education to residents with the ultimate goal of reducing the number of community cats in Ossining, as well as bring awareness to the program so more cats can be TNR'd and more volunteers can be recruited. And we would also very much like to collaborate with the Village to help promote our educational initiatives and engage in more community outreach. I would like to formally thank Mayor Gearty, the trustees, Chief Sylvester, the Village Manager, and Mr. Kahan for your time tonight and for supporting the TNR program and Cat Protection Council of Westchester.
Thank you. Anybody?
I'll go. So thanks for coming in tonight. Really appreciate it. I love animals. I have a dog, not a cat, but I had cats growing up. Full disclosure, I do take my dog to Dr. Kleinbard, so
Great.
whatever that's worth.
The great vet, yeah.
He's great.
Yep.
Supporting local businesses. So my question is ultimately, I see what your goals are. My question is what your request is, whether it's to continue the support as it was, recognizing that your current option with the Simpson Clinic is no longer viable, at least in the midterm until the Peekskill location opens up. Do you have a sense of specifically what the request is?
You referring to our request for being able to continue the program as the Simpson Clinic shuts down? Yeah, I think we do have some discussions going on with the Simpson Clinic at Spca, possibly with them being able to accommodate some appointments in that interim period after February 10th and before their clinic opens in Peekskill. But that's not a definite. We don't know if that's going to be consistent. And I think Tara is probably our best backup because I think it would be really unfortunate and probably detrimental to stop doing trapping every week, you know, because now is the time when the female cats are getting pregnant. We're going to have a lot of kittens on the street by March. And ultimately, you know, once those kittens are born, that's just additional costs, more cats to pay to have neutered and spayed and vaccinated. in the long term. So we are accustomed to trapping every single weekend. We don't like to take breaks from that, especially at this time of year. So our request is to be able to use an alternate service like Tara instead of the Simpson Clinic on those particular weeks and times that we are unable to use the Simpson Clinic because they're not functioning.
Thank you. And the Terra costs are 70 per cap, but that is not differentiated male or female. That is a flat fee. Does it matter? Male or
That's
female?
correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And can you tell me a little bit more about how the trapping works?
Sure, I wish I brought a trap with me. We use the Have a Heart traps, so they are baited with food, and we put them out and they're set so that when the cat goes in the trap and their foot hits a certain lever, it automatically shuts behind them. It doesn't hurt them. It scares them a little bit, and so what we do is we're always there watching the trap. We don't leave traps unattended. As soon as the cat goes into the trap and the trap goes off, we cover the cat immediately with a cover. Because otherwise they thrash around in the trap a lot trying to get out. So that calms them down immediately. It prevents them from getting injured. So that's essentially how it works. There is some coordination beforehand because the cats do need to be hungry to go into the trap. So that's why we withhold food for 24 hours before trapping. So we do need to coordinate that with the caregiver of the colony, tell them to stop, not feed, 24 hours before when we know we're going to go trap. And so that gives us a higher success rate of getting the cats.
You said the ultimate vision is to have essentially no community cats. Is that right?
That is a dream for sure. There's a lot that would need to have to happen in order for that dream to come true, because there's a lot of education about responsible pet ownership that needs to happen, about spay neuter. There needs to be more resources for low cost spay neuter for people. I know that's an issue for a lot of people. There are also some folks out there who don't believe in spaying and neutering animals. So there's a tremendous, sometimes there's a barrier there that we deal with. But we do believe that education is a really big part of helping to resolve this problem. I don't know if there's any community where they just do TNR and then they're able to stop doing it. It's one of those things where we sort of get a handle on stabilizing the population, and then we just keep on top of everything and just really get on top of those new cats that show up and just keep, all the population suppressed that way. So.
To what extent do they become part of the ecosystem so that if their numbers do go down, do you imagine there would be an increase in mice or something like that?
That's a really good question. I don't know all the scientific data out there on that. From personal experience, I do take care of a colony that's near a restaurant, and I've been taking care of the colony for over 10 years. There were 7 cats there 10 years ago. Now there's 1. And the restaurant owner asked me if I could bring more cats because he's getting mice and rats in his restaurant. So they do definitely provide rodent control. So I'm sure there are studies out there. I would be very happy to look some things up and send them to you if you're interested in, what that phenomenon looks like.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you for coming.
Sure.
Always informative, so I appreciate
Great.
the time. So, village manager question. I have a couple of questions. Thank you for the cost, because I'm not sure I've ever actually seen the cost presented holistically, which is tremendously helpful. So I did read in the news about the Spca, but we just passed a budget, so we're one of the few villages for miles on end that actually pay for both someone in the police department. The costs not included here that taxpayers pay for, which is everybody that's sitting around us, all of the time they've spent on it, legal time. So there are things that we do that I think very few villages and towns makes me very proud. I mean, we've talked about it. So we pay the SPCA, and now I'm hearing that they're actually sort of moving and renovating, which is phenomenal. So what are we paying for? Like, where is the money that we just approved a couple of months ago on an annual contract if in fact they're not available? Is there an opportunity to take that money and use it differently? My question here. Please. Oh, I didn't know that was you, Stuart. Sorry.
No. Two things, Deputy Mayor. The current agreement with the SPCA, in fact, has a provision in there that they would be closing and moving to Cortland for renovation. I want to thank Ms. Garber because tonight is the first time that I learned that they would not be doing TNR at that location. They've never notified the village till I just heard it here. The contract that we have with the SPCA, approximately 35, that whatever, whatever.
40 something thousand, 42.
That's for services that are not related to the TNR.
So TNR is extra above and beyond?
So the fees that Ms. Garber mentioned that we have currently with the SPCA, the $55 female cat, $40, that's a separate fee that is not part of the base contract that we have with the SPCA. So the numbers that we have, the 2007-10, that relates solely to the TNR process, not the other part of the program that we have with the SPCA. But what this brings up is that the numbers that are charged through the Simpson Clinic are less than the numbers, for example, through Tara. So that's a difference there. And again, I should point out, when we entered into the agreement with the SPCA for 2020, there are numbers in there for TNR.
Correct.
And there was never, let me be clear. My understanding was that it would all be done up at Cortland because that's what we had been told. So, and I'm assuming Cortland is probably the Peekskill location, unless it's a different place. Because
It's the same place, yes.
So, but in any event, we didn't know there'd be a gap.
Right.
And that
So it's not a legislative issue being
No.
presented here. It's actually an operations issue
Right.
and a financial one. So somebody needs to possibly, we find money for point A, take to point B, etc. That was really my only question. The rest is very clear from the presentation, so I appreciate it. But I guess somebody has to look into it because I'm hearing that the clock must be ticking here, biologically speaking. And possibly if contracts need to be done, well, I'm sure these folks are wonderful at it, but maybe there can be a stricter negotiation. So village, not that I should speak for you because it's operations, but gentlemen, we don't pay up front on a maybe with a minimum. I mean, but maybe we can have somebody help with the negotiation who can figure out what the best path is. It's not really for us, but for the
I
village
understand,
management.
yep.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Our second item on continuing business of the board was a petition by the Secor Road Development to amend the zoning code, and a referral to the planning board.
Yes, thank you. Deputy Mayor and members of the board, this is a request to amend the zoning code. As the board is aware from prior applications, when the request to amend the zoning code comes in, the Board of Trustees is obligated to refer that to the planning board. The planning board then holds its own public hearing and is required to come back with a recommendation within 62 days. So what this resolution is, it's simply acknowledging receipt of the petition to amend the zoning code and refer it to the planning board so that they can come back with their recommendation. And ultimately, it would come back to this board. This board would conduct its own public hearing and make a determination if it felt that an amendment to the zoning code that is requested here was appropriate.
Okay. Right here.
Sounds good.
Are we ready for the
Anybody?
resolution?
Yes.
Whereas in pursuant with section 270-59 of the Village of Ossineke Code, the Board of Trustees acknowledges receipt of the required filing fee of a petition from Secor Road Development to amend the zoning code, specifically section 270-20C. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant with the section 270-59 of the Village of Ossineke Code, the Board of Trustees refers to the Planning Board the affirmation petition. Do I have a motion? Again, there's a little blurb after that will be available online.
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board, I'm sure. Yes? Anybody? You have none? Annie?
Nope.
You're good? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. New business of the board. New business of the board. Karma Lounge, application for cabaret license. Want to take that?
Sure. Folks, this is, there are two cabaret licenses before the board tonight. Karma Lounge, and we'll get to the next one, which is Grace Hall. Karma Lounge, I sent you earlier some reports from the police with regard to this location. So I just
several
wanted you
questions.
folks to be apprised of that because I know that
Yeah.
that's come up. So, you know, if you want, we can at least, we can read the resolution and then we can have the discussion with regard to it.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Resolution approving cabaret license for Karma Lounge, 175 Main Street, Ossining, New York. Whereas pursuant with chapters 100 and 171 of the Code of Ossining of the Village of Ossining, be further described as code, the authorized representative of the business Karma Lounge, 175 Main Street, has presented an application to the village clerk, the licensing officer, for a refreshment, sidewalk cafe, and cabaret license for live music with DJs and dancing. And whereas pursuant with 100-3 and 100-5 of the code, the village clerk has caused an investigation into said application, and after receiving the results of the investigation, the application was referred to the Board of Trustees for final approval, and therefore be it resolved that in pursuant with the code, the Board of Trustees hereby approves the cabaret license for the Karma Lounge, 175 Main Street for 2020 as follows. Karma Lounge days and hours, Thursday through Sunday, 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Type of music, DJ.
Is there a
Any second?
No. Second.
Okay,
I have
comments
a
from the
motion
board.
and a second.
Thank you, Stuart, for forwarding that information early this week in regards to that. So I'm going to kind of ask the chief in regards to some of the reports. Typically, I guess when we talked about cabaret license, we kind of have an informal meeting and a work session. This was not the case. So I have two questions. One was the building department, because usually they do the review as well. Did they have?
Passed. It passed the inspection.
It
from the
passed the
building department.
inspection.
Yes, sir.
So what is the police department's recommendation on this application?
So they've had something of a history this year. It's the first year they've had a problem. This location was denied in their first year and then was given something of a probationary period their second year. The owner usually comes and appears at the meetings. He's been relatively cooperative. I think that probably Karen and I can sit down and have a conversation about how he runs his business. In this case, it doesn't particularly appear to be the owner harboring problems so much as that problems have come to him. So I have no objection.
What does that mean? The problems of, I mean, I saw the list.
In
There's
certain places, we
problems-
know that there's a steady crowd that follows around different bars, and we've had the same problems with the same people, even when places have changed location. This particular owner, it doesn't appear he's done anything to encourage trouble. He's not changed his format of anything. It's just people have come, and where alcohol exists, we have calls for service. If you look at all of our bars, they've all got something of a volume. When something is central on Main Street, it's going to get a broad crowd. You're going to get lots of different people there on lots of different days. And sometimes when younger people, most of our problems there appear to have been with younger people. Some of them go in and they overdo it, and we end up with problems. Like I said, he hasn't been a problem historically. This appears to be the first year that we've had a significant number of reports there. We'll have a chat with the owner, and I don't foresee it being a problem.
The chat, right. When you look at it, there's at least 1 to 2 things every single month. Then, to your point, it's on a main area.
I mean, we have
comfortable,
issues
that's
at
fine.
every establishment that serves
Understood.
alcohol that's open past 11 p.m. So,
Okay.
you know, that's not unique. I mean, in any jurisdiction you go to where they serve alcohol, you're going to find that. What we look for is patterns in the behavior.
Okay. Okay. I only asked this question because when you talk to the downtown committee and others, because they're so centrally located in Main Street, where the next morning, walking to the farmer's market, it's cans, it's all sorts of garbage. So their
This is the
location
one
is
that
a good
hasn't.
one, but it's also problematic.
This is the one that hasn't been the complaint about all of those things. They're the only one that wasn't a noise complaint from the neighbors. We've had calls for
Other
services
things,
there,
okay.
but all of the other establishments have had complaints from the neighbors, but not usually this one.
Okay, if you guys are good with it, you're okay with it?
All
Good
those in
enough for me.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, resolution approving cabaret license for Grace Hall Limited, 7 Old Albany Post Road, Austin, New York, whereas pursuant with chapters 100 and 171 of the Code of the Village of Austin, be further referred to as Code, the authorized representative from the business Grace Hall Ltd. Limited, 7 Old Albany Post Road, has presented an application to the village clerk, licensing the licensing officer for a cabaret license for live music pursuant with the Sections 100-3 and 100-5 of the code. The village clerk has caused an investigation into the application, and after receiving the results of the investigation, the application has been referred to the Board of Trustees for final approval. And now, therefore, let it be resolved that pursuant with the code, the Board of Trustees hereby approves a cabaret license for Grace Hall Limited, 7 Old Albany Post Road for 2020 as follows. Grace Hall Limited, days and hours, Fridays and Saturdays, from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. Type of music, live music, 4 or 5 performers and instruments. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments? I actually don't remember this one. I must have blinked. I mean, they come every year, but this one, I just don't remember this one. Is this any
It
different
was
than?
actually under a different name
Oh,
last year,
okay.
but same location.
Same location, different ownership or different?
They basically transferred the ownership, but it's the same group, but it's just under a different name.
Okie
I
dokie.
looked at the old application, but it's perfect. There were no reports of any incidents whatsoever.
You're okay with this, chief?
Yeah, we have no objection.
Okay, great.
Any other
Anybody else? All righty.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Members of the board, I have one additional matter for new business, one resolution. This relates to the Corinthian Group LLC versus Village of Ossining matter. And I'll just read it and then if there's any discussion. Whereas Corinthian Group LLC, having an address of P.O. Box 362, Mount Kisco, New York 10549, filed a summons and complaint in the Supreme Court of the State of New York, County of Westchester, titled Corinthian Group LLC versus Village of Ossining under index number 67902/2018. And whereas counsel for the parties have engaged in settlement negotiations in an effort to resolve this matter. And whereas the Village's Corporation Counsel and the Village's Outside Defense Counsel, Hodges, Walsh, and Burke LLP, believe that the proposed settlement is reasonable and recommend its approval. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees authorizes the settlement of the matter Corinthian Group LLC versus Village of Ossining in the amount of $55,000, and is further resolved that the required closing papers shall be signed on behalf of the village and filed with the Westchester County Clerk, and is further resolved that the treasurer of the Village of Ossining is hereby authorized to issue a check in the amount of $55,000 payable to Corbali, Gartland, and Rapelier LLP, 35 Market Street, Poughkeepsie, New York 12601, as attorneys for Corinthian Group LLC in full settlement of this action. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Comments?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And this brings us to, you're
No.
good with that? Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. So do I have a motion to adjourn into executive session?
I was going to just do the official visitor recognition.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I see
seeing
no one
no one.
except Maddie, which I assume is not here as a citizen or visitor visiting us. So
That is very
we'll
true.
close that. Madam
Okay.
Clerk.
So adjournment into executive session for the issues of real property, litigation, and personnel of a single individual, right?
Yes,
Single
thank you.
individual. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
We are adjourned.
You send this to me later.